what's up guys? It is your girl, Coach Leanne, down here at AM Fitness in Plainville. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about shoulder internal rotation. So what we're talking about is kind of this movement at the shoulder where it allows us to rotate internally as opposed to externally. So as a frame of reference for you, in our warm-ups a lot of time we do our S mobility. So just to demonstrate for you what my personal internal rotation looks like. S mobility where one arm comes up, one arm comes down. This is my good shoulder. So we're looking at the bottom arm, which is internally rotated. Now if we look at the other side, it's my internal rotation on this side. So as you can see, internal rotation on this side versus this side, not so good. So me as well as many other people, this is something that we need to work on. We have to make sure their internal rotation is really good. And we need to do that for a lot of reasons. So I mean, part of it is that if we start to overcompensate and the shoulder starts to move forward to allow us to get that internal rotation, we can wind up injuring things like our labrum and our rotator cuff and just other, various shoulder injuries that we don't want to have a part of. So for example, if we're doing things like high pulls or cleans, where it kind of forces us to get our elbow up, if we look at this part of our high pull is internal rotation. If you look at what my shoulder does, all it wants to do is come forward. So if I try to bring myself into a high pull, I can't really get my elbow up the way it needs to. I'm winding up kind of pulling back, and I'm compensating through my shoulder in a way that I shouldn't. So just a prime example for you of why we need to work on this internal rotation, because we don't want these injuries to happen. So I have a couple mobility exercises for you today that we can try. So one of them, we're just going to bring it onto our back. Now this exercise, if you have a partner, you're better off this way, but I just have a dumbbell with me right now to kind of help me out a little bit more. We're going to come onto our back. And again, we can kind of do that test, retest of where my internal rotation is. So if we look at both of my arms, without letting my shoulder come off the ground, we can see this arm, I'm able to get relatively low to the ground. I can get it almost in line with my hip, which is really right about where we want our internal rotation to happen. But if you look at me on this side, if I try to get my hand past about here, you can see how my shoulder starts to come off the ground to try to get to that point. So I have a dumbbell here just to help me out a little bit. This doesn't have to be a heavy dumbbell. I currently have a 12.5, but anything in that area, 10 is fine. This is just to kind of help put a little bit of pressure on the shoulder and give me something to push against. So if I keep my elbow out, so think like where we would do a push-up, that's kind of where I want my elbow to be. I can kind of push on this dumbbell, and it's going to help me keep my shoulder in the ground, and I can just kind of slowly reach to the ground and keep it dynamic and keep kind of resetting and making sure that I'm not letting my shoulder start to come off the ground. So we can kind of see that as I go through this, my shoulder's still trying to come off the ground, but I can get a little bit further every time before my shoulder starts to really compensate. And I'm using this hand to push on the dumbbell to kind of get in there. And again, just kind of working on building up that range of motion as we go. And so bonus, even just there, it's almost kind of like I foam roll my shoulder a little bit. So that's one exercise that we can work on. We always have the option of grabbing softballs and lacrosse balls, and we can foam roll all of these areas. These are very basic things that we can do, whether you want to do it on the floor, if you want to do it against the wall. We can take our softball and go right across that pec minor, kind of on a diagonal. Another thing that we can do with the softball, we can do what I like to call the swimmer. So if I get my softball and I kind of stick it right against that pec, I can get myself onto the ground, bring it into that internal rotation. So I'm just kind of playing around where I need to find it right now. So I'm here, and I kind of bring it in almost black burner style, like I'm swimming. I bring it around, and I bring it back behind me. So we're here, putting as much pressure on that softball as we can. So the reason that I'm rolling out my pec is because everything is connected. So this internal rotation that's happening in my anterior deltoid and my shoulder right here, part of this problem is that the pec minor is also really tight, so it's pulling that part of my shoulder down. So as much as I need to make sure that the delt is loose, it's loosened up and it's ready to go, I have to make sure that my pec is loosened too, because I don't want it to continue to pull my shoulder down. So if I get this to a place that it's great, but this is still tight, it's still going to keep me in that poor internal rotation place. So make sure that we're working on rolling out the pecs and mobilizing that as well. Another stretch that we can work on here at AM, this is one of our, we recommend that you do this at the end of every single workout. So for those of you who've been working out with us for a while, you'll be familiar with this one. We get our hand into the band, and we just kind of loosely grab onto it. So I'm not gripping the crap out of it, because I don't want to activate my forearm. I want to keep everything nice and loose. So I'm here. I'm going to rotate my palm up. So I currently have my right arm in the band. So I'm going to lead with my left leg, and I'm going to pull away. So again, my right arm is in the band. I want to kind of pull my left shoulder back as much as I can, and I can feel that big pull right across the front here, and I can even look away to try to get a little bit more out of that stretch. And I can just hold that right there. Beautiful, beautiful stretch for just opening all of that up. And then the last one that I want to show you guys, we talked about that S mobility at the beginning. We can do that with a band too. So if I get that band set up behind me, we can grab onto it, and I can of course put as much or as little pressure on this band as I want, and I can kind of pull that hand up so I can come a little bit further into that internal rotation. So I mean, I can't get my arm up here on my own, but if I use the band, the resistance of it to kind of pull up a little bit higher, I can get myself into more of this position, and I can work on getting a little bit better. So I mean, if we look at my internal rotation now, it's still not fantastic, but it's a little bit better than it was when we started this out. So a couple things for you to try out. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, give those a try and get your internal rotation going a little bit more.